Hello and welcome to BBC World News. I'm Martine Dennis.
And I'm Alice Baxter. The headlines.
Shocking evidence of homophobic violence in Europe. A report finds a quarter of gay people have been attacked or threatened with violence. President Obama says the US will not intervene alone in Syria. This as the BBC sees what appears to be evidence of the use of poisonous gas. And we meet the man who's going to spend 60 days perched on a rock in the middle of the ocean, all for a good cause.
And Dell profits collapse as smartphones and tablets continue to batter the PC industry. Hello there. Well, also coming up for you a bit later in business, mega ships in search of cargo. Container giant Maersk counts the cost of slumping global trade.
But first, the debate over the use of chemical weapons in Syria's conflict. On Thursday night, President Obama told the world the United States has seen evidence of their use.
The use of chemical weapons are something that the civilized world has recognized should be out of bounds. And, as we gather more evidence and work together, my intention is to make sure that we're presenting everything that we know to the international community as an additional reason, an additional mechanism for the international community to put all the pressure that they can on the Assad regime.
Well, the President's comments came as a BBC team became the first Western journalist to reach the site of what appeared to be an attack last month. Both the government and the rebels deny using such weapons, but our correspondent Ian Pannell and cameraman Darren Conway were investigating an incident in the town of Seref. Now, that's close to Aleppo in the north of the country. Their report does contain some distressing images.
The war in Syria hangs heavy with tales of appalling violence, of massacres and abuse. But for Britain and America, it's alleged chemical attacks that cross a red line and raise the spectre of military intervention.
On the 29th of April, Seref came under attack from government military positions about 5 miles in that direction. Using eyewitness testimony and video taken on the day, we tried to piece together what happened. The filming started right here from this vantage point as the artillery shells landed just on the other side of the building. It's a day that ended with what's claimed to be a chemical weapons attack.
Allahu Akbar. A local activist gave us this footage. He says it was taken as the shells landed. We can't verify these images, but all the videos you're going to see were apparently taken on the same day by different people we met. A helicopter was spotted high above the town. Eyewitnesses allege at least 2 canisters were dropped from it. They say it was shortly after they landed that casualties started to arrive at Seref Hospital. 8 people were admitted, apparently with similar symptoms. They appear to be vomiting with breathing problems. The worst affected was Mariam Khatib. Relatives claim a device had landed in her garden. Videos appear to show her unconscious with constricted pupils. Doctors who treated her claim she had signs of exposure to chemical agents. The mother of 8 died later that day. Her daughter lies nearby. Her tongue appears distended. She's frothing at the mouth. She, like most of the victims, responded to treatment. Her sons were also on the scene and say they had to be treated. Again, they apparently suffered respiratory and vision problems and appear to have constricted pupils. Mohammed is the eldest son. He says he'd tried to help his mother, but she collapsed in his arms.
It was a horrible, suffocating smell. You couldn't breathe at all. Your body would become really tired. You'd lose all senses. You'd feel like you were dead. You couldn't even see. I couldn't see anything for 3 or 4 days.
We were taken to the house by one of her nephews. He showed us where the device is said to have landed. Samples from here and from the victims have been sent to Britain, France, Turkey and America. Test results are pending. A British chemical expert has looked at this material and says there's strong but incomplete evidence a nerve agent was used. 4 of the patients were brought here, to a hospital near the border. Dr. Juma treated them. They were put through decontamination and were given atropine to treat their symptoms. But it was too late for Mariam Khatib.
The symptoms she displayed, unconsciousness, vomiting, pinpoint pupils, they all correspond to poison gas exposure. They often match organophosphate poisoning. It has many derivatives, one of which is sarin gas. We had our doubts, but we can't be sure until we analyze it.
Today, Mohammed lives in a tent outside town. He says he's too afraid to return to the house. For people like him, the real issue isn't how people are killed, it's death itself. And what they say is the indifference of the world to their plight. Ian Pannell, BBC News, in Seref.
Well, just before that report, we saw President Obama talking about how best to end the conflict in Syria. And, of course, he's been having meetings with the Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan at the White House. Well, with me now is Seref Isler. He's from the BBC Turkish service. And, Seref, of all of Syria's neighbouring countries, perhaps it's Turkey who is suffering the most pressure, both in terms of the humanitarian issue, more than 120,000 refugees, and, of course, on the military side as well, because they've had rocket attacks come over and onto Turkish soil, plus last weekend's car bombs, which killed several people.
Well, that's actually very true, because Turkey, as you might remember, last year, one of its jets was shot down over the Mediterranean, and then some artillery shells landed within Turkish territory, and then there was a car bombs last weekend. Now, Turkey is under incredible pressure domestically, because the people believe that it is the government's Syria policies that have caused the car bombs, in essence, and that if Turkey had not been so closely involved, then perhaps it would probably be on a safer side at the moment. And then militaristically, one can't really do much without the proper support of the international community. So Turkey is unable to take any military action either. So a normally blunt and outspoken Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Turkish Prime Minister, was somewhat subdued and quiet in Washington yesterday.
Well, let's hear what the Prime Minister himself had to say.
Our goal is to see the tyranny and the dictatorship go away in Syria and be replaced with democracy. And I think there is a collective responsibility on the part of all countries that believe in democracy. And this is what we will all continue to do.
So it's not exactly clear, is it, where they're standing at the moment? But what do you expect, certainly from the Turkish Prime Minister's side, what do you expect his next point of action to be?
I think on his immediate request will be one of I think he will ask for aid from the USA or support in dealing with the refugee crisis, because Turkey has, as you said, an incredible amount of Syrian refugees within its territory. So it will be expecting the US to provide support with the refugee crisis. But in the longer run, now that the Russian and US-led conference is coming together, it will probably be waiting to see whether a political or a diplomatic solution can be achieved on the question of Syria. And if all else fails, then it will probably be back to a drawing board for Turkey.
Well, very interesting times, aren't they, in terms of the Syrian conflict. Thank you very much for now. Seref Isler from the BBC's Turkish